Ever walk into a store, ready to buy your favorite imported goodies, only to be met with a price tag that makes your jaw drop? You're not alone. Those sneaky little things called tariffs might be the culprit, but what actually are they? And more importantly, why should you care? This isn't some boring economics lecture, folks. This is about your money, your stuff, and how decisions made by governments thousands of miles away can impact what you find on the shelves of your local supermarket. We're going to break down the complex world of tariffs into bite-sized pieces even a toddler could understand, though we don't recommend letting toddlers near tariffs. They tend to put everything in their mouths. By the end of this wild ride, you'll be able to impress your friends and family with your newfound knowledge of international trade. You'll be able to dazzle them with tales of economic intrigue and the subtle ways tariffs shape our daily lives. So buckle up, because we're about to dive headfirst into the world of tariffs. And trust us, it's a lot more interesting than it sounds. What exactly is a tariff? In the simplest terms possible, a tariff is a tax on goods imported from another country. Think of it like a toll booth for stuff. When a product crosses a border, the government gets to collect a fee. This fee, my friends, is the tariff. One of the main reasons governments slap tariffs on imported goods is to protect their own industries. Think of it like building a big, beautiful wall around your local businesses, shielding them from the cold, harsh winds of foreign competition. This is known in the biz as a protective tariff. Here's how it works. Let's say you've got a thriving domestic industry that makes, artisanal hand-knitted socks. Suddenly, a flood of cheap, machine-made socks from another country starts showing up in your stores, undercutting the prices of your beloved local sock knitters. What's a government to do? Why, impose a tariff on those foreign socks, of course. Tariffs aren't just about protecting your own industries. They can also be used as a tool of economic warfare. That's right, folks. Tariffs can be weaponized. Instead of bombs and bullets, governments use import taxes to punish or pressure other countries into changing their ways. Think of it like a strongly worded letter, but with financial consequences. Back in the good old days, tariffs were all about one thing: cold, hard cash. They were a way for governments to line their pockets by taxing the goods coming into their countries. It was a simple, if somewhat crude, way to raise revenue. Think of it like a toll booth for stuff entering a country. Remember when we talked about tariffs being used as economic weapons? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to dive headfirst into one of the biggest tariff brawls in recent history, the US-China trade war. This ain't no schoolyard scuffle, folks. This is a full-blown economic showdown between two of the world's biggest superpowers, and tariffs are their weapons of choice. The opening salvos of the US-China trade war sent shockwaves through the global economy. Businesses on both sides of the Pacific started sweating bullets as they tried to figure out how to deal with the sudden increase in costs. Importers were left scrambling, trying to find alternative suppliers or figure out how to pass the added costs on to consumers without sending them running for the hills. Consumers, meanwhile, started noticing the impact on their wallets. The US-China trade war wasn't a one-and-done affair. Oh no, this was a protracted economic slugfest that dragged on for years, with both sides trading tariff blows like prize fighters in the ring. The initial round of tariffs was just the opening act. As the trade war escalated, both sides doubled down, slapping even more tariffs on even more goods. While the US and China were busy duking it out in the tariff arena, another tariff drama was unfolding on the other side of the Atlantic. This time, it was a messy divorce between the United Kingdom and the European Union, affectionately known as Brexit. And just like in any good divorce, tariffs were a major point of contention. You see, for decades, the UK had enjoyed the benefits of being part of the EU's single market, which meant goods could flow freely between member states without any pesky tariffs to think about. All right, let's talk Turkey, or more specifically, let's talk about how tariffs impact the thing you care about most, your hard-earned cash. See, when those tariffs get slapped on imported goods, it's not like the importers just shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, well, guess we'll just eat the cost." Nope, they're savvier than that. They know the golden rule of business: pass the buck. And who's the lucky recipient of that extra cost? You guessed it, the consumer. The ups and downs of tariffs for companies. Now, you might think businesses would hate tariffs, and you'd be right. Some of them do. Especially those businesses that rely on imported goods to make their products. Imagine you're a car manufacturer, and suddenly there's a hefty tariff on imported steel. Well, guess what? The cost of making your cars just went up, and you've got a tough choice to make. Do you eat the cost and watch your profits dwindle? Or do you raise prices and risk losing customers to your competitors? It's a lose-lose situation, and it's enough to give any business owner a migraine. But here's the thing about tariffs. They can actually be a boon for some businesses, specifically businesses that compete directly with imported goods. Remember those artisanal sock knitters we talked about earlier? Yeah, those tariffs on imported socks are like music to their ears. With those cheap foreign socks out of the picture, or at least more expensive, those domestic sock knitters are sitting pretty. They can charge a bit more for their handcrafted socks, knowing that consumers might be more willing to pay a premium for a locally made product. Of course, this kind of protectionism can have its downsides too. If domestic businesses get too comfortable being shielded from foreign competition, they might not have as much incentive to innovate or keep their prices low. It's the classic economic trade-off: protection versus competition. The global game, tariffs, and the big economic picture. So far, we've been talking about tariffs on a micro level, how they impact individual consumers and businesses. But tariffs also have a much broader impact on the global economy as a whole. Think of tariffs like ripples in a pond. Even a small pebble can create waves that spread far and wide. One of the biggest ways tariffs impact the global economy is through inflation. When tariffs make imported goods more expensive, it can contribute to a general rise in prices across the board. This is because businesses that rely on those imported goods often have to raise their prices to compensate for the increased costs. And when prices go up, it can eat away at people's purchasing power, leading to a decline in economic activity. Tariffs can also disrupt global supply chains, those intricate networks that connect businesses around the world. When countries start slapping tariffs on each other's goods, it can create uncertainty and instability in these supply chains. Businesses may have to scramble to find new suppliers or reroute their shipments, which can lead to delays, shortages, and higher costs. And then there's the risk of retaliation. When one country imposes tariffs, it can trigger a domino effect, with other countries retaliating with tariffs of their own. This can quickly escalate into a full-blown trade war, with everyone losing out in the end. Remember what happened when the US and China got into a tariff tiff? Global growth slowed, businesses suffered, and consumers felt the pinch in their wallets. So, yeah, tariffs might seem like a simple concept on the surface, just a tax on imported goods. But when you dig a little deeper, you realize they're actually a powerful tool that can have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. They can be used to protect domestic industries, punish rivals, and even spark trade wars. It's a high-stakes game of economic chess, and the whole world is watching to see who makes the next move. Tariff wars a sign of the times? So, here we are, living in a world where trade wars are a thing, and tariffs are the weapon of choice. Remember when countries used to settle their differences with strongly worded letters and the occasional passive-aggressive tweet? Those were the days. But now, it's all about economic warfare, baby. The US-China trade war might be the most high-profile example, but it's not the only one. All around the globe, countries are getting increasingly protectionist, throwing up tariff walls like it's going out of style. It's enough to make a free trade advocate weep into their Adam Smith textbook. But why is this happening? Well, there are a few reasons. For one, globalization, that great engine of economic integration, has been taking a bit of a beating lately. Remember when everyone was all about free trade and breaking down barriers? Yeah, that's so 2008. These days, there's a growing sense that globalization has gone too far, that it's benefited some countries like China at the expense of others, like, well, a lot of developed economies. Add to that a healthy dose of nationalism, populism, and a general sense of unease about the state of the world, and you've got a recipe for a global trade brawl. It's like a giant game of economic capture the flag, with everyone trying to grab as much wealth and prosperity for themselves as possible. Not exactly the most cooperative approach to global problem solving, but hey, that's the world we live in. Brexit's ripple effects, tariffs averted, but not without a scratch. Remember Brexit, that messy divorce we talked about earlier? Well, the good news is that the UK and the EU managed to avoid a full-blown tariff war. They hammered out a trade deal at the 11th hour, saving everyone from a disastrous economic cliff edge. But that doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory across the English Channel. You see, even without tariffs, Brexit has created a whole new layer of bureaucracy and red tape for businesses involved in cross-border trade. Remember all that paperwork we talked about? Yeah, it's real. And it's a pain in the you-know-what for businesses already struggling to navigate the post-Brexit landscape. And let's not forget about the impact on supply chains. The UK is now outside the EU's single market, which means goods moving between the UK and the EU have to go through customs checks and border controls. This can lead to delays, disruptions, and higher costs for businesses, which often get passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices. So, while the UK and the EU might not be slapping tariffs on each other's goods, their economic relationship is still feeling the strain of Brexit. It's like they're trying to navigate a long-distance relationship after a messy breakup. There's still a lot of baggage and unresolved issues to work through. The World Trade Organization, referee on the ropes. In the midst of all this trade tension and tariff turmoil, there's one institution that's supposed to be the adult in the room. The referee that keeps everyone playing by the rules. The World Trade Organization, or WTO, for short. The WTO is like the United Nations of Trade, a forum where countries can come together to negotiate trade deals, settle disputes, and generally try to keep the global trading system from descending into chaos. But the WTO has been having a bit of a rough go of it lately. For one, it's been criticized for being too slow and bureaucratic, unable to keep up with the fast-paced world of global trade. It's like trying to direct traffic with smoke signals. By the time the message gets through, the situation on the ground has already changed. And then there's the issue of enforcement. The WTO has rules, sure, but it doesn't have a whole lot of power to enforce them. It's like a teacher trying to maintain order in a classroom full of rowdy teenagers. They can threaten detention all they want, but if the kids don't respect their authority, it's not going to do much good. And let's not even get started on the elephant in the room, the US-China trade war. The WTO was designed to prevent this kind of tit-for-tat tariff escalation, but it's proven largely ineffective in this case. Both the US and China have ignored WTO rulings, essentially saying, thanks, but we'll handle this our own way. So The WTO is at a bit of a crossroads. It needs to adapt to the changing realities of global trade, find a way to enforce its rules more effectively, and figure out how to deal with the growing trend of protectionism and unilateral action. Otherwise, it risks becoming irrelevant, a relic of a bygone era when countries were more inclined to play by the rules of the global trading system. The tariff takeaway. Knowledge is power and maybe saves you a few bucks. So, there you have it, folks. The wild, wacky, and often infuriating world of tariffs, laid bare for all to see. We've journeyed from the dusty history books to the front lines of modern trade wars, all in the name of understanding these pesky little import taxes. And what have we learned? Well, for starters, tariffs are a lot more complicated than they seem. They're not just about governments trying to squeeze a few extra bucks out of unsuspecting importers. They're about protecting domestic industries, punishing rivals, and wielding economic power on the global stage. We've seen how tariffs can drive up prices for consumers, disrupt global supply chains, and even spark full-blown trade wars. We've also seen how they can be used to protect jobs, promote domestic industries, and level the playing field in international trade. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and the debate over the merits of tariffs is likely to rage on for years to come. But hey, at least now you're armed with the knowledge to understand what all the fuss is about. Next time you hear some talking head on TV ranting about tariffs, you can impress or annoy your friends and family with your newfound expertise. Just don't be surprised if they start asking you to explain the finer points of international trade policy. You've been warned. Get involved, because tariffs aren't just for economists anymore. Here's the thing about tariffs. They might seem like some abstract economic concept that's best left to the experts, but the truth is, they impact all of us. Every time you buy a product that was made in another country, you're feeling the effects of tariffs, whether you realize it or not. So, what can you do about it? Well, for starters, you can stay informed, pay attention to the news, read articles about trade policy, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you know about tariffs, the better equipped you'll be to understand how they're impacting your life and your wallet. But don't stop there. You can also make your voice heard. Contact your elected officials and let them know how you feel about tariffs. Support businesses that share your values on trade. And be a conscious consumer. Think about where the products you buy are coming from and the impact your purchasing decisions have on the global economy. Tariffs might be a complex issue, but that doesn't mean we should just shrug our shoulders and leave it to the experts. We all have a stake in the outcome of trade policy, and it's up to all of us to engage in the debate and make our voices heard. So go forth, my friends, and spread the tariff gospel. Let's make the world a more informed, engaged, and hopefully a slightly less tariff-ridden place. Okay, maybe that last part is a bit ambitious, but hey, a little optimism never hurt anyone, right? Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and for the love of all that is holy, stay away from those trade war battle zones. They're a real buzzkill.